Welcome to our channel where today we take you deep into the fascinating and often surprising world of rare coins, collectible treasures, and the stories behind them. And in this episode we will be exploring one of the most intriguing coins of modern American numismatics, the 1982 1-cent coin, a penny that under normal circumstances would be worth just a single cent in everyday transactions, but in certain rare and extraordinary cases has sold for astonishing sums, with some examples commanding a rumored valuation of around $12 million, and the reason for this incredible price lies in the unusual errors, mistakes, and unique circumstances surrounding the year 1982, a year that marked a major transition in the history of the Lincoln cent. A year when the U.S. Mint switched from the traditional bronze composition that had been in use for decades to the new copper-plated zinc composition that would dominate the later years of the penny, and as a result of this sudden and complex changeover, multiple varieties were struck, mistakes were made, and unique rarities were created that would captivate collectors for generations to come. So let us journey together through the possibilities, the errors, the history, and the reasons why a humble 1982 penny could be worth millions today, starting with the historical context. Because until 1982 the Lincoln cent had been minted primarily from an alloy of 95% copper and 5% zinc, which gave the penny its distinctive reddish tone and relatively heavy weight of 3.11 grams, but by the late 1970s and early 1980s the rising cost of copper made it more expensive for the mint to produce pennies than their actual face value, forcing officials to explore alternative compositions, and after much experimentation the mint finally decided on a new formula of copper-plated zinc, consisting of 97.5% zinc with a thin outer layer of copper, which dropped the weight of the coin to 2.5 grams and made production more economical. Yet the transition was not immediate or smooth, as the mint was forced to produce both the old bronze composition and the new zinc composition during the same year of 1982, resulting in multiple variations of the penny, including different dates with large date and small date designs, and these varieties set the stage for errors, off-metal strikes, and rare combinations that would later become some of the most valuable modern coins in American history. And among these, a few extraordinary mistakes escaped the mint, blending the wrong metal with the wrong design, or displaying unusual characteristics that collectors prize. And when we think about the possibility of a 1982 penny fetching as much as $12 million, it is not simply about age or rarity alone, but about the perfect storm of error, survival, and demand. Because certain 1982 pennies struck on bronze planchets when they should have been zinc, or zinc when they should have been bronze, combined with the small date or large date variations, have become legends in numismatics, and it is these dramatic minting mistakes that propel values into the stratosphere, with some examples auctioned for hundreds of thousands of dollars, while others, under extraordinary circumstances and with perfect provenance, have been rumored to command values as high as $12 million in private sales. And to understand why, we need to look more closely at the mistakes themselves. Because in 1982 there were at least 7 recognized varieties of the Lincoln cent, including 1982 copper large date, 1982 copper small date, 1982 zinc large date, 1982 zinc small date, and then their Denver Mint counterparts, and with so many combinations in play it was easy for transitional errors to occur, with some pennies struck using the wrong planchet, leading to pieces that should never have existed. And for collectors these transitional errors are like gold, because they capture a moment in minting history where human oversight or machine miscalibration produced something unique, something that escaped into circulation and became a holy grail for those who dedicate their lives to finding rare coins. And one of the most famous examples is the 1982 D small date copper penny, an error that has sold for incredible amounts at auction because it combines the wrong planchet with the wrong design in a year of transition. And while most pennies are ordinary, the possibility that a coin in your change jar could be one of these errors is what drives the excitement and the mystique, and that is why collectors pore over every detail, weighing their pennies to check if they are 3.11 grams for copper or 2.5 grams for zinc, examining the date styles to distinguish between small and large date varieties, and searching tirelessly for that one coin that bridges the gap between ordinary and extraordinary. And when we hear about a coin being worth $12 million, we are not just hearing about the physical metal or the face value, but about the narrative, the provenance, and the mythology that surrounds it, because a $12 million coin is not only a tangible artifact but also a story of mistakes, survival, and obsession, and collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts to own a piece of that story. And in the case of the 1982 penny the story is particularly compelling because it captures a year of chaos at the mint, a year when the changeover from copper to zinc created an unusual environment ripe for mistakes, and every error penny from that year carries the weight of that history. And when you consider how many millions of pennies were struck in 1982, it is astonishing that just a few slipped through with such dramatic mistakes, but that rarity is precisely what makes them so valuable. Because scarcity combined with demand creates astronomical prices, and as collectors and investors compete for the best examples, prices soar higher, with record-setting sales that fuel the legend of the 1982 penny. And it is not just the known varieties that intrigue collectors, but also the possibility that undiscovered errors may still be out there, hidden in old jars, drawers, or collections, waiting to be recognized. And this possibility fuels the imagination, because who would not want to find a penny worth millions hiding in plain sight? And it is this dream that makes the 1982 penny such a powerful subject in the world of coin collecting, as every collector, novice or expert, understands the thrill of discovery, the moment when a common object reveals itself to be something extraordinary. And in the case of the 1982 penny, that moment could mean the difference between 1 cent and $12 million, and that is why the story endures, why people keep searching, and why the legend of the 1982 penny will continue to fascinate for generations, because it combines history, error, rarity, and the eternal hope of finding treasure in the most ordinary of places. And as we close this deep exploration of the 1982 penny and its incredible value, remember that behind every coin is a story, and behind every story is the possibility of discovery. So keep looking, keep searching, and who knows, the next coin you find might just be the one that changes everything. And if you enjoyed this journey through the hidden world of coins and the mysteries of the 1982 penny, make sure to stay with us for more fascinating stories, and do not forget to like and subscribe for future explorations into the treasures of numismatics. Next. Today we are going to take you on a journey into the story of the 1988 1-cent coin, a coin that most people would walk past without giving a second glance, a coin that normally only carries the face value of a single penny, yet under certain extraordinary conditions and because of very specific minting errors and mistakes. Examples of this coin have been rumored to reach valuations as high as $7.2 million, and the reason lies not simply in the coin's age but in the mistakes, variations, and possibilities that make it so rare and desirable. And when we look at the world of numismatics, we realize that value is not only determined by metal content or denomination but by the story of how a coin came to be. And in 1988 the United States Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents, mostly indistinguishable from one another, yet in the vast sea of ordinary copper-plated zinc coins, a few extraordinary pieces slipped through with errors that turned them into legends, and these errors have been examined, debated, authenticated, and celebrated by collectors for decades, making the 1988 penny one of the most interesting modern U.S. coins in circulation. And to understand why such a small coin can command such an astronomical price tag, we need to look closely at the kinds of mistakes and errors that occurred. Because in coin collecting, an error is not just a flaw but an accident of history, a frozen moment in time where the machinery of the mint and the oversight of human operators intersected in a way that created something unique. And in 1988 some of the most famous mistakes include double dies, transitional design varieties, misstruck dates, off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, and perhaps most importantly, transitional design mistakes involving the obverse design, specifically the use of a master hub that had been intended for later years, creating the famous 1988 reverse of 1989 variety. And that single discovery alone shook the coin collecting world, because it meant that some 1988 pennies carried a reverse design that did not officially debut until 1989, instantly transforming a common coin into a scarce treasure. And when we break down the possibilities, we see that collectors prize these coins for multiple reasons, starting with double die errors, where the design elements such as the date, the letters of liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust" appear double due to a misalignment in the hubbing process. And while most double die pennies are valuable, the 1988 examples are particularly captivating because of how rare they are in high grades. And then we move to transitional varieties, the most famous of which is the 1988 penny struck with the reverse design of 1989, identifiable by subtle but distinct differences in the designer's initials at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, with the 1988 reverse of 1989 showing the FG initials with a sharper, more separated appearance. And once this variety was discovered, it set off a frenzy of collectors examining every 1988 penny in circulation to see if they held one of these rare errors. And because only a small number of them exist, their value has skyrocketed, with some pieces selling for tens of thousands and others speculated to have the potential to reach into the millions when in pristine condition. And it is in this realm of speculation, rarity, and collector passion that rumors of a $7.2 million valuation arise, because when a rare coin is the centerpiece of bidding wars among elite collectors, prices can escalate beyond imagination, and beyond the reverse of 1989 era there are also striking mistakes such as off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned in the press and part of the design is missing, with dramatic off-center examples being highly collectible, especially when the date is still fully visible. And then there are broad strikes, where the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking malfunctions, allowing the coin to spread wider than normal, creating a misshapen penny that still bears all its details but looks unusual, and these errors are loved by collectors because they are visually distinct and undeniably authentic minting accidents. And another possibility that adds to the value of 1988 pennies is the wrong planchet error, where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination, such as a dime planchet of copper nickel, creating a lightweight, silver-colored penny that should not exist, and such mistakes are extraordinarily rare and command massive premiums, and when combined with the transitional varieties and double dies, they form the foundation of why the 1988 penny is such a fascinating subject, because within a single year's issue we find almost every category of error and mistake that collectors dream of, and when you add scarcity into the equation you get a recipe for immense value, and the coin collecting world thrives on stories like this, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary and a coin worth 1 cent becomes a prize worth millions. And if we look at the market we see that high-grade certified examples of the 1988 reverse of 1989 variety already bring in thousands of dollars, and as time passes and fewer pristine examples are available, the rarity only increases, driving up prices further. And when one considers that many 1988 pennies were heavily circulated, finding an example in mint state condition becomes an achievement in itself, and when that example also carries an error such as the reverse of 1989, the price multiplies exponentially. And now imagine the possibility of a unique combination, such as a 1988 reverse of 1989 double die obverse struck off-center but with a full visible date. Such a coin would be virtually one of a kind. And in the world of numismatics, one of a kind means limitless bidding potential, as wealthy collectors and investors compete to own a piece of history. And this is how a coin can reach valuations in the range of $7.2 million, because the market is not just about intrinsic value but about demand, rarity, and the stories people want to own. And the story of the 1988 penny is one of mistakes, chance, and survival. Because for a coin to be valuable it not only has to be struck in error but also has to survive the decades without being destroyed, melted, or worn down to illegibility. And the fact that some 1988 error pennies have done so makes them modern treasures, and this possibility excites collectors of all levels, because it means that even today, more than 3 decades later, there is still a chance of finding one of these coins in change, tucked away in a jar, or forgotten in an old collection, and that dream fuels the hunt, because coin collecting is as much about the thrill of discovery as it is about ownership. And every time a collector picks up a 1988 penny they look closer, weigh it, examine the initials, check the details, and hope that maybe they are holding something extraordinary, and it is this hope that keeps the legend alive, because a coin worth $7.2 million is not just metal, it is a symbol of luck, chance, and history intersecting. And so as we explore this further, we see that the 1988 penny captures everything that makes numismatics compelling: the errors that should not exist, the varieties that bridge different designs, the visible mistakes that catch the eye, and the rumors of astronomical value that inspire people to look closer at the change in their pockets. And as the years go by and more of these coins are discovered, authenticated, and auctioned, the legend only grows stronger, with each sale setting a new benchmark for value. And while most 1988 pennies will never be worth more than a cent, the rare few that carry these mistakes are worth fortunes. And the possibility that one could be out there waiting to be found is what keeps collectors searching. And so the story of the 1988 penny is more than just numbers and dollars, it is about possibility, and as long as that possibility exists the fascination will never fade. And as we wrap up this exploration of the 1988 penny and its extraordinary value, remember that every coin has a story, and sometimes the smallest coin can carry the biggest tale. So keep looking, keep searching, and maybe, just maybe, one day you will hold in your hands a penny that is not worth 1 cent, but $7.2 million. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden world of coins and the mysteries of the 1988 penny, stay tuned for more incredible stories, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the treasures of numismatics. Last. Today we are going to dive deep into the fascinating tale of the 1995 D1 cent coin, a Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint that under normal circumstances would only be worth a single cent, passed casually from hand to hand in change without a second thought, but in extraordinary cases tied to minting errors, rare die varieties, striking mistakes, and unique conditions. Certain 1995 D pennies have become so desirable to collectors that they have reached valuations as high as $2.9 million. And the reason this is even possible lies in the unpredictable world of minting, where billions of coins are produced in huge presses at incredible speeds, yet once in a while small imperfections, misalignments, or unintentional variations create coins that were never meant to exist, and those coins become legends in collecting circles, treasured for their rarity, their mistakes, and their ability to tell the story of how something slipped past the rigid quality controls of the U.S. Mint. And to truly understand why the 1995 D penny can be so valuable, we need to first look at the context, because the mid-1990s was an era when the Mint was producing massive numbers of Lincoln cents in their copper-plated zinc composition, introduced in 1982 as a cost-saving measure to replace the older bronze cents. And with hundreds of millions of coins struck annually, it might seem that every 1995 D cent would be exactly alike, but the reality is that differences in dies, hubbing processes, wear-on equipment, and even misfeeds of planchets often produced varieties that collectors now chase with obsession, and one of the most famous error types for 1995 is the double die variety, particularly the 1995 double die obverse from the Philadelphia Mint, where the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust" show dramatic doubling, a discovery that caused a sensation among collectors at the time. And while the 1995 D Denver issue does not feature that same famous double die, it has its own suite of errors and varieties that make it significant. And when we imagine a Denver minted coin with a dramatic error, such as a double die obverse that went unnoticed, or a major off-center strike, or even a transitional mistake involving wrong planchets, it is easy to see why its value could soar to millions if only one or two examples exist, because rarity, combined with demand, fuels astronomical prices, and within the 1995 D series collectors have reported examples of misaligned dies where one side of the coin is perfectly centered but the other is slightly off, creating visible misalignment of the design elements. And while minor examples of this error might not fetch much, dramatic misalignments can be very valuable, especially when paired with other oddities. And then we come to off-center strikes, where the penny is struck so far from the center that part of the design is missing, sometimes leaving a crescent-shaped blank area while still showing the full date, which makes it desirable because collectors want both the dramatic error and the identifiable year and mint mark. And then there are broad strike errors, which occur when the collar fails to hold the coin in place during striking, allowing the metal to spread out wider than usual, creating a misshapen penny that is instantly recognizable as something unusual. And these broad strikes can be even more fascinating when paired with full detail, and in extremely rare instances a 1995 D penny could have been struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime or even a foreign coin blank. And such errors are the holy grails of mint mistakes because they are one of a kind and represent a failure of the mint's tight processes, and when authenticated they command huge sums. And if we think about the possibility of a 1995 D penny struck on a 90% silver dime planchet, weighing differently, shining differently, and carrying the wrong metallic composition, it is easy to imagine collectors driving the price up into the millions. And then we add in the factor of double dies and repunched mint marks, which for Denver coins are particularly intriguing, because the hand punching of mint marks prior to 1990 had largely been replaced by machine processes, but in transitional years errors could still occur where the mint mark appeared doubled, misplaced, or oddly shaped. And such varieties when paired with the 1995 date make them highly collectible, and all of this shows how the combination of rarity, error type, and condition determines value, because most 1995 D pennies circulated heavily and are worth only face value, but the few that escaped with extraordinary errors and remained in mint state condition are the ones that change everything. And this is how a coin that millions ignore can suddenly be appraised at $2.9 million, because in the numismatic market it only takes one or two wealthy collectors competing for ownership of a unique coin to push prices to breathtaking levels. And this is not just speculation. History has shown us that coins such as the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, the 1804 silver dollar, and other rare varieties have sold for millions because of their stories, their scarcity, and their allure. And the 1995 D penny fits into that same narrative because it represents the intersection of everyday currency and unimaginable value. And if we think about the psychology of collectors, it makes sense, because they are not just buying a piece of metal, they are buying history, rarity, bragging rights, and the thrill of owning something no one else can. and the 1995 D penny, with its potential double die or wrong planchet or off-center strike, becomes a ticket into that exclusive world. And let us not forget that condition plays an enormous role, because coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state and beyond, with proof-like designations adding further premiums, and a 1995 D penny with a dramatic error in circulated condition might fetch thousands, but the same coin in flawless mint state, preserved from the moment of striking, could command millions. And this is where the $2.9 million figure comes into play, because at the top of the market, rarity plus perfection equals astronomical prices, and collectors know that these coins do not come along often, which is why they are willing to pay anything to secure one. And when we look at specific examples of 1995 D pennies that have crossed auction blocks, we see that rare varieties already bring in significant sums, and if one unique coin emerges with the right pedigree and publicity, the price could shatter records. And what makes the story even more engaging is the possibility that such coins are still out there, hidden in old jars, tucked away in collections, or sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket change. Because with billions of pennies struck in 1995, it is inevitable that a few slipped past unnoticed, and that means that the dream of finding $1 million penny is still alive today, fueling the passion of collectors young and old, because who would not want to stumble upon a fortune in the form of a single cent? And this is why the 1995 D penny has captured the imagination of the numismatic community, because it combines commonality with extreme rarity, ordinary with extraordinary, and in doing so it tells the story of how mistakes create value, how errors create legends, and how chance creates opportunity. And so as we bring this deep exploration to a close, remember that coins are more than metal, they are history in your hand, and sometimes that history can be worth millions. So always look closely at your change, always study the details, and never assume a penny is just a penny, because the next time you glance at a 1995 D Lincoln cent you may be holding a coin worth $2.9 million. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries and treasures of the 1995 D penny, make sure to stay connected with us for more incredible stories from the world of coins, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into numismatics where the ordinary becomes extraordinary.